I didn't have an issue with it in the beginning, much like many people, until I did take care of someone with similar heritage who pointed it out very quickly. And she was like, I know what you are. She said, if it bothers most of us, why would you not stand up for us? And she had a point. Honor, duty, respect. It's a respect thing. And I did I did a lot more digging and a lot more speaking with her, and I realized the gravity. And I learned a little bit more about the history, and the more that I learned, the more I became upset. You don't know what you don't know. So I spent many years learning and being quiet and listening to other people and drastically changing my view.
The mascot issue is really near and dear to my heart. When I was going through it, didn't necessarily bother me. It didn't necessarily offend me. I kind of found it funny, that this thing was kind of representing the schools. At the time, we were the only Native family that we knew of in town. And I was one of very, very few children of color within the school. I consider myself a Black Indian as well. In years when you grow up and you start to learn and really educate yourself on the imagery that affects you, you start to look and shape things very, very differently.
I can certainly feel that this is part of their heritage, in a sense, their nostalgia, this paradigm of youth, of culture, of pride. It's like we're fighting the same issue, but on different ends for the same exact reasons. Only one of them actually is our culture, and the other is just a concept of it. That name was given to silence us and erase us. So we're not erasing North Haven's history. That name is erasing our history, and that's
exactly.
That's something that I can't stand behind. But those who are against it, you really have to think to yourself, why is this important enough for me to make threats to our neighbors, to houses where children live in? Why is this important enough? Am I willing to go to jail for this? Am I willing to terrify children because of something I did in high school? The fervor that's come of this. I've had people come to my home. So when the school board says that we don't want to have a vote because it's gotten really scary, well, how do you think it feels for us natives? So your comfort level versus me, and I have a child who the school board is supposed to have their interest at heart. You're putting a child in that uncomfortable position for your own, to ease your own discomfort. Right. That's not acceptable. That's not honorable. What about us?
My daughter, my family, and I actually went to a board meeting that was held. There was a lot of people there. The atmosphere was very, very tense. People were extremely passionate about keeping the name and imagery. And it was really, really challenging. At times it got really disruptive and very aggressive. I then chose to speak out to the Board of Ed individually to just kind of state my case, just because I really didn't feel as though that atmosphere was the best. And I brought along my daughter, who also spoke to the Board of Ed as well. Following that meeting, from the time that it aired, from the time I actually spoke that evening to the time that it aired, and then even, in years it's actually aired on repeat, my house was broken into. We did get death threats. It was really, really intense. And it was all about just, because we spoke out and spoke up for ourselves, defending ourselves and the imagery that we wanted to be represented as Native people. And it's not really fair that, especially in this town, that in a time where you would think that people would be able to at least voice their opinions, that you're met with threats and vandalism and attacks and different things.
This is what I'm asking the people who are watching this, those who are in those positions, those who are in leadership, is ask yourself on why this is important to you. And do you truly believe that this is something that needs to be done? Or have you still not yet been convinced? If you're not convinced, but you're simply a little bit frightened, then you need to look within yourself and what type of leader are you? They were directly asked to stop by several Native organizations, and yet it's like, wow, we still need to think some more. We still need to get more education. You're educators. You have the information. You are not educating yourselves. We're not buying into it, and you're not educating the children, and you're not truly committing to something that is important, which is a disservice in any form of leadership.
We're trying to ask, the North Haven Board of Ed to not force this issue. It's not a forced change. It's a peaceful request. It's a peaceful request on behalf of the Nipmucs, on behalf of the Narragansetts, the Scatticokes, the Golden Hill Pegussets, the Turkey Hill Pegussets, the Pequots, the Mohegans, our Monowees, our Quinnipiac, all of our native tribes. There's so many of them that actually live in Connecticut. We're calling on the North Haven Board of Ed to make the right decision, be on the right side of history, do it for our children. We don't want our children to grow up in a world that is full of imagery that disrespects them, that puts them into a box, and that subsequently causes our other adults and children around them to treat them horribly. North Haven Board of Ed, I applaud you for your efforts in trying to, retire the actual imagery of the mascot. We're also asking you to retire the name. The name without the imagery just is useless. Talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, teaching about the King Philip's War, teaching about the history, Trail of Tears, celebrating Native American Indigenous Peoples Day. All of those things that don't just happen in November is really just a start to acknowledge some of the wrong, but also teach the positive within the school system. And that's something that's very simple that could be done in North Haven, letting them know about, modern political movements such as, water protectors, kinds of things. There's many, many different things that they could actually support, encourage, and teach, and have a new mascot. Point blank, start by having a new mascot. Be on the right side of history.
The way that everybody is putting in this energy to fight to keep the Indians as the mascot, why are you not applying that same energy to teach the history behind it? And if that history is taught behind it, maybe their minds will think a little different than keeping that mascot.
And I do appreciate that it's meant to be an honor and why it was done, that there was no malice in it. However, many tribes don't feel it to be an honor. And there are many tribes who do not subscribe to the aggressive nature. Hopi means peaceful ones. But I don't want that as a mascot. Like, that's not my personality. My sparring is with words. That's what I do. That's what most of us do. That's what civilized people do. So to make us all as if, they're savages and we're trying to show you that, we're great warriors, that's great. But the world isn't made of great warriors. There are all sorts of different people along there. So to put one into that because you think it's a good attribute doesn't mean that everyone thinks that's a good attribute. I'm asking the Board of Ed, please retire the name, retire the image, get a new mascot for one reason, because you're leaders. Do the right thing for the children. You know it's the right thing. Now act like the leaders that you are. We need to be the change we want to see.
We need to be the change we want to see. What a beautiful quote. And yes, that's exactly what it is.